Hello, hello, all my honeybee friends. Hello, Rachel and Harriet and Missy and Brenda. Hello, hello, Roxanne, Lori and Robin, Jeanette. Hello, everyone. All right, we're going to do some crafting tonight. Hello, Martha. Hey, Mindy. There's Mindy. Hey, Dawn. Hello, everyone. Hey, Susan. Okay, tonight's card is going to be a good mixture of three of our awesome design team members. We were talking about Simon Says Stamp Create, which was last week. And our design team member, Kelley Taylor, did some amazing coloring on our seed packet stamps, the new spring version that has the forget-me-nots and carrots and pansies and things. And so I thought it would be fun to show you some coloring that I learned from Kelley. But also, I'm going to step up the card design just a little bit and mix some ideas that I saw from some of our design team members, like Brenda and Melissa Phillips, and then, of course, Kelley's beautiful coloring. So we're going to mix up ideas and create a beautiful card with our seed packet stamps and dies. And I am going to go down to my desk view here. So this is the Forget-Me-Not stamp. So let me show you the whole stamp set. And I have it zoomed in so we can color, but I'll have to move it around. So we have the Forget-Me-Nots, the pansies, the carrots, and blueberries. And there are the little labels that you can put in the banner. There is a thinking of you. And there are also coordinating dies. You can see that I have cut my forget-me-nots out with the coordinating dies. There's also a little seed packet die that you could create a for real seed packet like we did at Create. We had our friends at Create color on a seed packet, and then we actually put forget-me-not seeds inside the seed packet for them to, take a little goodie home. And so I thought it would be fun tonight to create kind of a stepped up version of our seed packet, show you some of the awesome coloring that Kelley taught me. Now, am I going to be as good as Kelley? No, not anytime soon, but we can practice, right? And I can show you some of the little techniques that she taught while we were at Create that were super fun, that are going to be fun to pass on to you guys. And what I love about Kelley's techniques are we can all incorporate them into our coloring and just practice and get better and better. So I'm going to start out by coloring the leaves, but firsthand, to make this seed packet look a little more vintage looking, you can see that I have stamped it in a brown, kind of crafty, almost chocolate colored ink. And that's just going to lend itself to that more vintage feel that we're going for. Remember, we're mixing design ideas tonight. So I'm going to start out my coloring with a YG03. This is just like Kelley did at Create, and I'm going to color an all over just wash of color all over the stems and those leaves. And you can see also I have stamped this on to a cream colored cardstock instead of white. So it's fun to mix it up. Sometimes I like to stamp and color on craft cardstock. That would be really pretty for kind of a vintagey or maybe kind of a farmer's market seed packet type design. So you can really mix up your inks and things like that to get different looks. Okay, so I've got that YG03 all the way down. Super easy. All you have to do is kind of trace that in and color it in. Now we're going to start adding some little flicks with a YG17. And this is the darker. And all we have to do on this is just add some little flicks here and there to give those leaves the illusion that they have some shading, maybe some veins here and there, and you can add, a little bit of darkness where you would have some shadows. Let's see here. Right around. And I had so much fun at Create, and I know you guys did too, watching Kelley color in person. You can always watch people on their videos and things like that, but when you can sit and watch people craft in person, it's like a whole different ball game to get and see ideas like that. I'm going to take that YG03 again, and I do want to go right up in there. We can add some dark spots. We can blend things out if we want to, right up those stems. But you'll notice as I color this, and because Kelley brought up a really good point, there's not a whole lot of real estate when coloring these little images and flowers and things like that. So you don't have to get too persnickety about the perfect blend or anything like that. Okay, so we've got our greenery all good to go. So let me show you some ideas that Kelley gave us when coloring the actual flowers. And let me see here. I'm missing, there we go. And I'm going to use two different blues, a B41 and a B34. So the 41 is going to be the lighter color and 34 is darker. So what Kelley mentioned is there is a couple of ways that you can go about adding some shading and some darker parts to the petals of your forget-me-nots. And anywhere that the petals are touching one another or they're crossed over one another, in those areas where they're touching or crossing over, that's where you're going to want to add your shading. So a majority of our shading, of course, when we do petals is going to be right around the center part of the flowers where all those little petals kind of meet up and dip into the center. There's a couple of ways that you can achieve this. You can do that by just adding your little flicks of color, just like so. And Kelley also mentioned, which I thought was cool, is just adding some messy dots here and there, because it's all going to blend together and no petal is exactly the same. So she mentioned, do what you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with little flicks of color, then do little flicks. If you're more comfortable by just kind of going in and adding little dots here and there of that darker shade, then add little dots. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can add the lightest color first and then go in with the darker color. Or you can add your darker color first, just in little hints of dark color here and there. And that way, you can just start out with a little bit of the dark color, because once we lay down the dark color, it's a lot harder to take it away or to lighten it up if we add too much. And so I like to spin my cardstock around to get, all the little flicks and things going in the direction I want it to. I like to flick away from my body or my face just because that's what I'm more comfortable with. And so I'm just going to continue on here just like so. And we pretty much got all the dark down. And then areas like, let me find one. Areas like this right here, where this big petal is going to be crossed over that smaller petal, maybe that's where you want to go up and add more shading right there. So you can kind of look at your flower petals and decide, where you want to add the most color. Okay, now we're going to go in with B41, which is a lighter color. And these aren't even the same colors as Kelley used at Create. use what you have. You know, I didn't have the same colors of blue. Okay, so anywhere that you drop your Copic marker or you lay that point down is where you're going to get the most shading. And so if we're wanting to keep it dark in towards the insides of the petals and lighter towards the tips, then maybe you want to set your marker down on the dark part and then pull out the lighter color. And then no need for this technique that I'm going to show you, there's no need really to go all the way to the very end of the tip, because I'm going to show you a technique that Kelley taught us called glazing with your Copic markers. And you can see how it's pulling out a little bit of that darker blue color. It's blending just a little bit, but as it dries back and dries down, you're really going to be able to see that darker color kind of pop through the lighter shade. Okay, so I'm just going to go around here. And again, I'm dropping the point of my marker right down there in that darker blue, and then just kind of filling in. There's no need to get super fancy on these small little images, which I like, because we can make it look pretty without having to stress about, you know, getting the perfect shading or anything like that. So I'm just going to work my way around here and keep pulling out that color. Some of them I'm going all the way to the tips and the edges of the flower. And then some of them I'm leaving a little bit of the tip, that creamy color of the cardstock, because we're going to do that glazing technique. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working my way around here. And you can always go back in if you want your insides a little bit darker. You can always add more later. So I'm just going to keep working around here and making sure that I get all my little petals colored in. And you want to kind of test different cardstocks. Now, does this creamy color off-white cardstock, does it blend out and act exactly like a Nina cardstock? No. Now, is craft cardstock going to behave exactly like a Nina cardstock? No, it's not. But that's when you kind of want to test and play. And you'll notice I'm barely adding any pigment down, because the less you put down, the less likely it is to bleed out, especially when you're trying out different kinds of paper. Okay, so now let's talk about that glazing technique. And Kelley glazed the blues with a V01, which is a purple. So you know that blue and purple are next to each other on the color wheel. They kind of blend in together. So you can glaze with colors that are more alike. For example, I didn't even know that I was glazing, but I love to glaze and do this technique when I color fall leaves. So let's say that I have a burnt orange and I want to glaze or add yellows into those leaves and kind of blend it together to get kind of a new shade of color. Well, that's glazing. I was doing that and had no idea that I was doing it. So what these two colors are going to do is it's going to mix together and make like that kind of periwinkle, bluish, purpley color. And you'll notice some of the petals, I'm going all the way down and blending it in with the blue. And others, I'm just kind of pulling it down from the tip. And you can kind of mix it up, add purple or the violet here and there. We don't want all of our petals to be exactly the same. And you can see we're getting that kind of periwinkle color there by kind of glazing over that light blue. do just a little bit down in here. And then that's looking pretty good to me. I'm liking the way that that's looking. You know, some of them have a lot of the V color, and then other ones don't. Other ones have more of the blue. Make sure that I have all my petals colored, and that looks pretty good. Okay, the centers of the flowers, I'm going to do a Y11, which is just a creamy yellow, and I'm going to go all over in there. Nothing fancy, just like that. And it's going to be just a little bit of a yellow on that creamy paper. Okay, now let's talk about the banner and how we can do this. So on this creamy paper, I'm going to use warm grays. Now, when we colored it at Create, we stamped it in black and it was on white paper. So you may want to use more of a cooler gray tone, but because we're using this warmer shade of cardstock, I'm going to use the warm grays, and it's going to add, it's not going to be, that cool gray color. And I'm going to color in my darkest gray, which is a W1, right back in here where that banner would really be folded over on itself. And you can see that the area darkened up. I'm going to go right down the sides here using my stamped lines as a guide. And every time I drop that marker down and the tip down, it's going to get a little bit darker. It's like adding pigment on itself. Okay, now we're going to add some shading into the banner. And so I'm going to start in the center and pull it out longer. And then I'm going to taper it down from there with little flicks. Just like that. You can see where we're getting some shading and getting some movement in that banner. Same thing here. I'm going to pull it out, taper it down. Just like that. And on the thing that I loved that Kelley talked about is she talked about walls of color. And if you do your Copic markers, let's say you're coloring something and you do like this, and you have a wall of color right there, that's going to be much harder to blend out than if you have these little weird kind of, you know, they don't all match up little strokes. This is going to be much harder to blend out and add color to than this. And let me show you how. So this is a W00. And if I run it over that, you're going to see where even though I'm scrubbing over that paper, we still have that wall of color right there, that straight line. But if I go here and blend that color out, it's going to blend a lot better because I haven't created that wall right there. I loved the way that Kelley taught that at Create, and it made so much sense to me. So I'm going to pull out this side and do the same thing. And you can see how all that kind of blends together. It looks like it's got a little bit of movement to it, like it's curling around on itself right there. And then we can add, you know, little lines of shading up under the banner. And this doesn't need to be anything fancy schmancy right there. Over the top. Like that sitting right there. And then I'm going to take the lighter color again. I'm going to finish out my tails. There we go. And then that's looking pretty good. Just like that. I'm going to leave it. Okay, for the little flourishes on the side, you could color those in any color you wanted to. You know, I would suggest choosing something that's going to match your pattern paper or one of the colors that you have chosen for your coloring. I'm going to use the greens. just because I think it's pretty. And so I'm going to give it an all over coat of the lightest green, which is YG03. And it's going to be really pretty with the pattern paper that we're using. But I'm simply just tracing, coloring it all in, because then I can go back here in just a second and add some little flicks of shading with the darker green. I'm just going to trace all the way around. But you might want to do blue flourishes or whatever. Okay, let's get up here at the top. Okay, and we're looking pretty good. Looking pretty good there. Okay, so let's take the YG17, which is what we use to shade in and kind of mimic the veins in the leaf. So we can kind of go in up in here. We can go on maybe the bottom of the curls here and there. And I'm just going to add just little bits of this darker green, and it's going to make that pop just a little bit. Let's add some down in here. Maybe some little flicks. And you can see where it just makes, see where it made that green just pop. So pretty. Maybe some little flicks up and blend down into the lighter color. And I'm going to leave it just like that. I think it's pretty just like that. I'm going to leave the little 5 cents, and I think we're ready to go. Okay, so let's now switch gears here. Let's start getting our card base ready. Now I have cut out of our layering vintage label dies, I have cut a background, and you can see I've taken the Thinking of You is actually created with a little bit of a curve in it to go on the banner. So you could stamp it, you know, on the banner there, and it's got a little bit of a curve. I used my Misty Door and pulled a little bit of that curve out of it to go, you know, right in there. And I am going to add some twine, and I'm going to go and I'm going to zoom. Nope. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So I've got some really thin twine. And as I mentioned before, we're going to make this look a little bit more rustic, a little bit more vintage. And I'm going to take my twine on this background die, this frame, and I'm going to start wrapping it in. Just like that. And I'm going to pull, I'm going to almost like sew with it right in and out of these little framed openings. There we go. And maybe a couple more. And let's do one from this end and then maybe back around. But if you had like baker's twine or a ribbon or anything like that, you could kind of use any of those. Okay, so I'm going to snip this off now. And I'm actually just going to use a piece of tape to hold it all down. All right. I'm going to cheat and use my tape. Okay, so let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got this very rustic-y looking, you can see that little knot right there, but that's okay. That's going to be underneath our seed packet. Okay, do you see where we're going now? We've got this kind of farmy, rustic looking little background that we've got. And remember, we're mixing kind of 3 different designers here: Brenda's, Kelley's, and Melissa's card idea. All right, so I've got some of our pattern paper from our Pinstripes and Polka Dots Spring Edition. I have some craft cardstock, and let's just glue this down. And while I'm gluing, I'm going to read comments here. All right, I never thought of wrap around the frame instead of just the focal point. Yeah, we can wrap. I'm all about like the twine and ribbon and all the things. I don't pull it out and use it as often as I used to, but I've got, we've all got a million different types of, if you're anything like me, you've got a million different types of twines and ribbons and all the things in our crafty stash. We might as well pull them out and use them. Okay, and then I'm going to add my frame, and I'm going to go put barely any glue because I don't want it to come out right around the edges. And I'm just going to pop that down and then pick up the whole thing, and then I can kind of shimmy it into place here. There we go. You move it around so we got it all down. Okay, now we have our little forget-me-nots. So let's pop this part up. I'm going to add some of our foam dots back here. So tell me in the comments, let's see what you guys are talking. I always forget to use the twine and ribbons. I do too sometimes. I don't forget usually the pearls and the gems and things, but I really have to think about it to remember all the twine and ribbon. So tell me in the comments about the coloring. Did you learn anything new? Did I tell you anything new about the coloring that Kelley taught me? Or did you guys know about like the glazing and things like that? I must have been doing it and I just didn't even realize that I was doing it. Okay, now we've got this cute little thing here. We can even add, let's see here, I may do, we could even add a little tie here. And I'm gonna look up at the comments as I tie here. I think I wanna do a double. So I'm gonna leave it really long. Let's see here. Yes, the shading on the banner was totally new to me, and I love that technique and will use it. I will employ color glazing more often too. I know. And I didn't know technically what all it was called. I knew about like the flicking and things like that, but I had never thought about like when she started talking about you coloring in a wall of color and how hard it is to blend out once you create that wall there. But it totally, I was like, aha, that totally makes sense. When she said that and she demonstrated it, about this is why we don't do that, because it is so much harder to blend out later on. Okay, I'm kind of digging the twine here, just like a double little, it looks very rustic. Let's trim our tails just a little bit. Okay, I'm kind of digging that. Now I have the forget-me-nots little banner, and there's a die that coordinates with that cuts it out. And I did it in craft cardstock, and I'm going to pop it right there. I think it pairs really well with like the twine, and I put it all on a craft card base. And I think I'm just going to add that flat because we popped up our little flower piece, little die cut. Okay, so let's pop that right down in there. And I almost hate to cover up that pretty blending that we've got there, but that's okay. We'll take one for the team there. And I'm going to hold this up here in a minute to where you guys can see it in the good light. Okay, now we've got that. And then I saw another fun idea that I like. Let's see. I think the technique could also be used with colored pencils and paints too. For sure, you could do that with, let's see, Kelley, you've also inspired me to add detail with colored pencils. Very cool. I can't remember who it is that I learned that from, but I think it's ingenious to add, when you ink blend or whatever. Okay, so we're going to get wild and crazy here. We're going to add some glittery stickles around to the flowers. And I saw this on one of Melissa Phillips' cards. She actually did a forget-me-not card, and in the center of her little flowers was this glittery, kind of messy, no rhyme or reason, little bits of good glittery goodness. And so I'm just spreading that around, and it's going to add just a little hint in there of some glitter and shimmer. Okay, that's really pretty. Okay, now let's bring it all home here with some pearls. And then because we're going with this vintage look, I'm going to use my very favorite, and it's hard to see on this camera, my very favorite champagne colored pearls, because it's going to tie in so beautifully with the creamy cardstock. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple, I'm not going to go wild with the pearls. We just want a few scattered here and there. Let's see here. Maybe let's do a big one. Why not? Let's tuck it in right up in there. Okay. And then I'm going to try to hold it up here and see if we can't catch it. Okay. Do you see the shimmer where it almost looks like, even though we've got a vintagey kind of looking card here, that shimmer in the center of the flowers, it doesn't read, too modern or too, I don't know. It's like the perfect little bit of shimmer there. Isn't that cute? So all different styles from our design team, all mixed together. Now, let me go to here, to this view, and let me hold it. I always like to do this because the light is better. Okay, do you see what we're getting here? Now, do you see the glazing where that periwinkle there on the tips of the flowers? And then let me move it over here. I always go the wrong way. And then that little bit of shimmer, even though we've got, let me get closer. Even though we've got a vintage looking card, let me pull it back. That shimmer, when it dries, is just going to be a delicate little touch of shimmer right in the center. And it's really playing off of my lights in here. So this is more true to color over here. Let's see the glazing and the dark blue in the center. Oh, I just love it. I had so much fun learning from Kelley. And of course, I love, looking at all the cards and getting ideas on our social media from our design team. Okay, does Honeybee sell the shimmer? Yes. This one is the Stickles Crystal. And so it is almost like an iridescent. You can kind of see it in there. An iridescent shimmer. Let me kind of go like this. Okay, see that? So when it dries, especially on these. It's going to dry clear. You're just going to have that little bit of shimmer there. And then Honeybee also has more of a gold shimmer that's called Bee Shimmery. And it is more like a liquid watercolor that has shimmer in it almost. So you could put it anywhere, but it's called Bee Shimmery. Love the stickles. You know, that's another thing that I never pull out is like my stickles and all those things that we have. But I saw Melissa Phillips card like this and I was like, that is beautiful with the forget-me-nots. And the brown ink, normally we always reach for our black ink, right? When we're going to Copic color and things like that. All you need to do is just make sure that whatever ink that you're stamping with is Copic friendly. So let's see, I ordered the Bee Shimmery but received a gold ink pad re-inker. Uh-oh, Beth, email me and I'll help you, or email customer care and they can help you with that. Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't think anybody had, well, I don't see. Love Kelley Taylor. Yes, we love Kelley Taylor. I had a great time meeting Kelley and our design team members. Let's see. Love the brown ink. The brown ink sometimes is really cool, huh? Because it's not as harsh as the black ink, especially if you're doing something that's a little more vintagey looking. It's not nearly as harsh as that black ink. I love how you explain everything. Oh, thank you, Harriet. Love the forget-me-nots. Melissa is the, oh, hey, Brenda. Yes, Brenda, you were part inspiration for this card. So thank you. Thank you. Brenda's in the chat over there, you guys. So Brenda, I got the idea. I thought it was brilliant to pop the little seed packet stamp onto this frame that we actually put out in the fall. I thought, well, that is so smart. And, you know, she had some pattern paper or something up in here. And then the color scheme and the vintagey look I took from Melissa. And then the coloring, of course, I took from Kelley. So this was like a Honeybee team effort for this card, and lots of inspiration from our design team members. All right. So, okay, I think it's time. Did you use Memento Brown ink? I did. I used the Rich Mocha. That is the one that I used. And I just didn't like stamp it over and over again. I wanted it to stay pretty light. Okay. All right. I'm a teacher and want to do the seed packets to send. That would be adorable. I made seed packets one time for a wedding favor for a friend. And so I made like about 200 seed packets and we put wildflower seeds inside. So there's all different kinds of things, you know, you could do with the seed packets and the dyes and things. Okay, so what inks can you use with your Copic markers? You just need to read on there. Most of the time it's going to be a dye ink. You can see where this one says dye ink, and it will tell you, it says fade resistant, water-based, fast drying dye ink, quickly dries, beautiful contemporary colors, water resistant, dries on paper surfaces. And then the rest is in a different language. But yeah, I just knew that this one was good. But you know, that's one of those. Here, let me show you. Let me show you my trial. Okay, so here is my trial. And you can see where I was trying the paper to make sure it didn't bleed. I always do this. Get you a scratch piece. And I was trying different colors of ink. And this, my ink, my Copic marker was bleeding. And so I rubbed off the tip. That's what that is, that bled through. But my suggestion is to get you a little scrap of paper. And you'll notice when I was coloring the background, I had a scrap of paper under it because I always like to rub off on the side or test my inks or something like that. But I suggest that if you want to try a different color, to stamping in a different color or stamping with a new ink that you're not sure about, just test it first. before you do all the stamping and stuff like that. Let's see, gray would be good. Yes, gray would be good too. I have a gray material that's nice. Yes. It just depends on the look that you're going for. And remember, I stole all these ideas. It's a whole collaboration. Melissa Phillips had stamped in brown, and I thought that is perfect. And she does that vintage touch, like chef's kiss. And then Brenda, of course, with the frame, and then Kelley with the awesome coloring. So I cannot take full credit for this card. I have to hand it to our amazing design team members. All right, you guys. Yes. All right, let's do our giveaway this evening. And I know that Melissa and Lisa are out of town and they're busy this evening. So I'm going to scroll through here and choose one of our winners. All right, our winner this evening is Miss Virginia Ellison. You are our winner this evening. So Miss Virginia, if you'll email me at Kelley, Kelley at honeybeestamps.com, I will set you up with your gift card. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me this evening. And then I will see you again. Let's see here next week. I want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. All right. All right, you guys. Congratulations, Virginia. And I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.